Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Last episode focused on individuals who had little to no experience with code or code concepts. We talked generally about what it takes to be a programmer, went through the Railroad tutorial, discussed the code editor in some depth, and finished up by listing supplemental but common resources. From here on out, we're going to be working directly with code. We'll be learning and applying actual programming concepts. That requires a different format. Each episode, I'm going to start with a recap of where we're at and then identify a task to complete. We'll break that down into its apparent steps and work through our resources and develop the code needed to accomplish that task. Along the way, we'll probably identify game elements and metagame our future and current progress. This is, after all, a game, and we are gaming it. We'll finish up by addressing the concepts that we discovered and explored throughout the session. But let's get going. Last episode gave us just a simple script to get started, which all it did was it hacked a server. We found the grow and the weaken function, and when we used all three of those, the hack and the grow increased the security. The grow refilled the amount of money that the hack took. The weaken lowered the security that got increased when we did the grow and the hack. So that relationship is probably pretty important. It tells us a couple of things. The money in the account is not infinite and it has to be replenished. We have to keep increasing our skill. Otherwise, security will get to a point where it's going to be unmanageable, unhackable. So what we're going to do this week is likely going to focus on that cycle because we're obviously not going to be getting as much money from the server as we want. We are also going to look at the tutorials and other documentation, probably to get that started because we really don't know anything about the API or about the language. I'm actually really glad that we actually got this screen because basically it says that we've been offline for a number of days and our scripts that we made, just that basic one that we made, was getting us money the whole time. It does tell us that we haven't gained any reputation amongst our factions, but we weren't introduced into factions. I think that likely when we are, we'll have to deal with that mechanic as we come to it. New update. I'm not going to get into it too much because it doesn't really affect us. We started with a brand new game and the documentation should already be updated. We'll just be able to kind of go from there. I'm not going to look at the migration guide or the change log, and our script is stopped. So we'll just get that started back while we're running the game. In the meantime, let's just see where our server is at because it's not an infinite amount of money. So I'm just going to analyze it real quick. So let's just bring back up our noodles. Oh, I'm not on the server. Got to go back home. Click on this little link again. Oh, wait, I just saw something. The Hacker Starting Handbook. Okay, we didn't have that before. Some sources, learn to program, NetScript.js, and NetScript documentation. When starting out, hacking is the most profitable way. I think we already figured that out initially because it doesn't take anything but time and it also builds over time. So good. A hack and grow both steal a percentage and grow a percentage, but because they work by percentages, we definitely want the amount of money to be high as it can be and make sure to keep the security level low. So it's basically telling us what we had already talked about. So that's a pretty good blueprint for what we're going to do going forward. It does introduce a couple of other things that we saw. We can buy additional servers. We can increase the RAM on our computer. We did see that Noodles and the other low-level servers, they have RAM, and we can run scripts on it. So that means that the scripts that we just made, we can actually send it over to there and have it run more. I'm going to kind of do that right now. The help command will tell us what commands we have. We're just looking to copy a file, but we want to copy it to a server. Here we go. So SCP, the file it is that we want, and to the server. So we're going to do that real quick. And connect noodles, run noodles. Now we have noodles running on both computers. now, because we don't know anything, I'm just going to go to the tutorial here, click the Getting Started. I'm looking through the table of contents first. I like the idea of creating the script, so let's go to creating our first script real quick. And this actually does what it is that we're talking about here. And I'm just going to copy that real quick with Control C because we're likely going to use this. So this does the weaken, the grow, and the hack. We're going to use this as a template. I'm going to do a couple of things here. I don't often remember nano, so I'm going to use this other command that was up here to create an alias. Aliasing is something that's common on computers. And we're just going to say whenever we say edit, we want it to be nano. So now I can just edit noodles.js. Actually, we want these to stay running. So instead, I'm going to do autohack.js because it does the whole thing. And then we're going to keep this first line just like we did in the last one. And if we look at noodles, we need to keep this line too. So we're just going to keep this line and the braces have to match. So we're just going to paste everything inside. And if you click on a number and just drag down, you can highlight an entire group of lines. And then if you just press tab, we can get that indented. So it makes it really, really clear that all of these commands are in our main area. So our auto hack should work here. It doesn't. Okay, not defined. What does not defined mean? What that means is that our script doesn't know what it is. Why doesn't it know what it is? I'm going to go back to our noodles and see something real quick. Okay, await ns.hack and hack. Oh, that's interesting. So this is a good time to actually talk about a key feature of a code editor that I didn't cover before. There's two really great features to code editors. The first one is code inspection. So I noticed that when I put my mouse over this one, it actually showed us some information about the function. This is what's called a signature, and it said that in order to use this, we need a host, and it tells us that the type of information it is, which is a string. A string is just another word for text. It has another argument, which we mentioned arguments before, but we didn't really get into them. We are using them. And then it tells us that it's returning a promise of a number. And then it gives us some, information about it. It tells us how to use it. Await ns.hack. The reason why I was interested in this, and I don't want to get sidetracked, is because when I put the mouse over this hack, it doesn't say any of that information. It should, right? Because it's the same function. But what it really comes down to is this hack, this line is different. It's got the ns dot in front of it. The function that it mentioned to get server max money, it says the same thing that the hack says. I'm pretty sure that when I stick the ns dot here, look at that. It gives us all of that information. So what we're going to do in all of these places where the blue is, these functions, if you remember, I'm going to stick that ns dot and see if that changes something. And it does. ns, that's blue, says nothing. ns, checking it real quick. That's blue, says nothing. Your code editor is also going to tell you some things sometimes along the side or in there. And this has got a red box. And this says possible infinite loop, await something. Sure enough, over here, we have the same kind of thing where we have to await. Do we have to do that for everything? Well, let's use our code editor to tell us this. So I'm just going to stick this in front of everything, just like before. That one doesn't look the same as the others, though. So it has no effect on this type of expression. I wonder why that is. This should be pretty indicative right here. So hack requires it because it gave us the promise of a number. Well, grow also gives us the promise of a number. But this one, get server money available, it gives us a number. It doesn't give us a promise of a number. So the await doesn't work there. And that's likely going to be true for promises. And we're just going to make that assumption right now. Save it with Control S, come here, and now we're going to run our auto hack. And both are running. So just doing that, just by looking at the editor, we were able to get it functional. So what's the next step? Well, let's look at our script real quick. It uses a variable, and basically what a variable is it's a place to store values. If you remember, noodles is a value. We give it the name, we tell it where it is. It's like an address, a street address for a person. It's just the place where you can go to get in contact with it, to find out about it, or to set it, to store something somewhere. Maybe even like a storage shed. A storage shed might be a better analogy. Then it gets the server's maximum money and multiplies it, gets 75% of it, and that stores that in a variable, the money thresh. Does the same thing with the security, except instead of 75%, it adds 5. It's setting numbers here so that it just can check them later. Then it'll break into the server as we need to, and then that while true that showed up over here, that means it's just going to happen over and over and over again. So if the security level is greater than the minimum security level, that's what the thresh is, the security thresh, then it's going to weaken it. That's exactly what we want to do. We want to get that security low first. And then if the money is less than the amount of money that we want, then we're going to grow it, which is exactly what we want. We want to fill up that account as high as possible. And then as long as those two conditions are not being met, then it will do what it is that we really want. It'll hack. And then if the security goes too high, it'll go back to fixing the security and go back to growing the account and go back to hacking it. That's what all of these keywords mean. In fact, most of them are pretty self-explanatory. These keywords anyways. We still don't know what export or async do, but I don't think that's important for what it is that we're doing. So we're just not even going to take the time to look those up. But the server that is doing this target, you'll see that it's used everywhere. So that they're all basically attacking the same thing. We've got two rules that are showing themselves to us, and I want to talk about those rules real quick. So the first rule is that the computer doesn't know anything, doesn't do anything that we don't tell it. And that's a really, really important rule. It doesn't actually know what a target is. It doesn't actually know what noodles is. We actually have to tell it both of these things. And the only reason it's named target is because that's useful for us. That's rule number one. And that's always true. The second thing here is that we've got these functions, and these functions are actually using the target, using noodles. And in order for them to actually be multiplied times 0.75 or be added, 5 to it, in order for that to happen, it has to be giving us something back. So a computer works on inputs and outputs. We can see this just in general in the command line. When I type in scan, it gives me a list of servers. When I type in scan analyze, it gives me a detailed list of servers. And so we're putting in the command and getting out, but that goes even further. Remember when we did scan analyze 2? It gave us more computers. So it took 2 as an argument, and it said, oh, you want me to do something with this. And that little command knows that what that means is it wants us to go just one deeper into the network and give us back that information. Does that work for scan? it doesn't work for scan. So the command line takes in the command, and then the OS gives us the information back. Well, functions work the same way. It takes in input if it's allowed, that's defined by it. And, in this case, it's always the host. These are always the host. And then it gives us back something. So that's what a function is. A function is inside a program. You can actually do ins and outs inside your program. We give things in to get things out. Even though this is part of the NS side of things, this is just programming in general. It's always going to be true. What if we wanted to do a different server? And rather, I'll just go scroll up a little bit. So we have noodles. We only have a 17 hacking skill, but we have a few other servers that we could actually be hacking right now. We have Food and Stuff, Sigma Cosmetics, Joe's Guns. So what if we just wanted to use the same script to do that? Well, like before, we're going to keep the previous script active. So I'm just going to use our little copy function, and we're just going to name it something different so that we can work with that. And we're going to run it with Food and Stuff. Save that, and we're going to run that. So now that's working. This one's been just started, so it's going to be weakening the server. But you can see here, we're fast running out of RAM. I'm going to take some of that money and go and increase our RAM real quick. Wow, that just went up. If I wanted to increase the RAM again, now it's going to be 3 million. It did double our RAM. That's just going to get more expensive over time. It means we're going to need a lot more money very, very quickly. So Sigma Cosmetics, I'm going to have to copy this file again in order to do that. I'm pretty sure there's a better way. We've already got a bunch running on noodles and stuff like that. Why don't we make our script work like some of the other commands and work with arguments? Let's go into the documentation real quick and let's see what it is that we can find. I'm going to go to basic gameplay, scripts right here. Look at that right near the top, script arguments. Doesn't tell us much, but it does say, hey, CNet script arguments. So we'll click on that real quick. So if we wanted to run a script from our script, we would use the run command. We'd probably have to do ns.run. So this documentation doesn't account for our super advanced status, but it does say args as well. So run and args. Pretty sure that has to be ns.args, but we're going to go check that out real quick. So args.length, args, and okay, so it says it's using an array, and that's what the brackets are for. So now we're going to an array. Nothing here and nothing in the basic gameplay tells us anything about arrays. So that's probably a language thing. Let's go take a look at the language thing. Do we know what an array is? Okay, there we go. It enables storing a collection of multiple items under a single variable name and has members for performing common array operations. So what does this mean? Okay, so here's a shopping list. Here we go, accessing and modifying array items. This is the line that I think is interesting because when we type that, it says returns bread. So 0 means bread. So 1 probably means milk, 2 probably means cheese, 3 probably means hummus. Back here, it was using arg0, so we're going to do that. This information came up. It looks like a story message. I know you can sense it. I know you're searching for it. It's real. I've seen it. I can help you find it. And okay, so this is definitely a story message, but it did say that it added the flight.exe program to the home computer, and I can use it to track my progress. Oh, so we have to get a certain hacking skill we have to get a certain amount of augmentations. We don't know what those are yet, and we have to get a lot of money. I'm actually going to go to the city real quick because I think we need a job. So I'm going to apply to be an employee, and we'll just start to get money that way too. While I'm working at a job, it says that I can just work, but I can do something else simultaneously. We still have that task we have to accomplish. I'm going to go back to the arguments. That's what we want to do is the arguments. So we're going to have to use that auto run. We're just going to have to keep copying that over and over and over again for every server it is that we want to hack. And we already have several servers that we want to hack. That's just not going to be good for us. So the way I'm thinking about this is that if we can do what these commands do and use an argument and send it to the script, that we can just tell it what server we want to hack, and then we only have to do that process once. So like before, I am going to copy our auto hack 2. We're going to keep those other ones running at the moment until we make this work, and we're just going to make an auto hack 3. Let me go back here to the getting started. Args 0. Based on our experience, we were going to have to do ns.args. So ns dot, and look at that, it's the first one. Now this brings me to the second major feature of a code editor, and that's called code completion. So if I press tab right now, I get args. If I click on it, I get args. You can actually use this, like if we want to do get, look at that. It does that for us. And then when we start typing, it tells us even more information. What's related there? Nothing. Well, we know get server max money has something. So let's get server max money, parentheses, because we know it's a function. And that tells us that we need a string, which we remember to be noodles. Like that's the only thing that we know is that it's noodles. But no, we wanted ns.args, and that was ns.args 0 is always going to be the first one. Even though we're only doing one, it told us it was an array, and that required those brackets. So just going to save that. We'll do the analyze because we need the ones that we can do. We already did noodles, we already did food and stuff, so we needed Sigma Cosmetics. Run auto hack 3. I don't remember what happened to the other scripts. Okay, so Sigma Cosmetics is running there. And that's actually a really cool feature. It's telling us, even though it's auto hack, it's telling us we're doing it to Sigma Cosmetics. So that's just going to be way better. We had Noodles running, right? Noodles originally. Oh no, Noodles.js. Interestingly enough, we know that Noodles doesn't accept an argument because we didn't program it that way. It doesn't stop it from running. So there's actually no downside to using arguments just as a whole. So we had Noodles, we had AutoHack. I'm gonna take away the argument. And we had AutoHack 2 is what was all running. And we ended up getting more RAM. So all of these are running, but like look at AutoHack 3. We know that AutoHack is working with Noodles, but it doesn't tell us that. We know that AutoHack 2 is running with food and stuff, but it doesn't tell us that. But our new AutoHack 3 not only allows us to work on any server that we have the skill for, but also tells us, we can see at a glance what it is doing. Pretty nice, handy feature. I'm just going to kill them all. And our auto hack 3 is better than all of our other hacking scripts combined. So I'm going to rename our noodles because I don't want to be typing in autohack.-3 every time. It doesn't make sense if we're not going to be using our old hacking scripts. So we're just going to make that our new auto hack. Now let's see how it behaves. Noodles.js. Oops. Well, yeah, of course it would be. That's not a host. Noodles. Food and stuff. Sigma Cosmetics. That's honestly, that's just so much nicer. What else can we do? Okay, so we have a hacking skill of 45 now. Sigma Cosmetics requires 5. Joe's Guns requires 10. And Hong Feng Tea requires 30. Harakiri sushi requires 40. So we can actually do a few of them. So let's just kind of do them in order. Joe's Guns. And Harakiri sushi. We're low on RAM again. All right. Well, let's go back to the city. I mean, we do still have money. Upgrade RAM. 10 million. Okay, that tripled. So the first one tripled, the second one tripled. So this is going to be 30 million next. Now we're able to run it. We have one script. We're hacking all of these servers with it, which is amazing. So I think this is a good time to put this episode at a close. So with our first task out of the way, let's reflect a bit on what we've learned. The first thing is we didn't need to know code to work with it. We didn't even get into the language. We made the starter script, which didn't work. We made it work. And we did it with our supplemental resources, logical thinking, a little bit of experimentation. I really want to talk about this point. I'm going to drive this one home, and I'm taking my blinders off for a minute. Many people have probably heard that you have to be good at math to do code or to do it well. I hope this shows that that simply isn't true. Being good at math can help, but that's because math and programming, they're logical processes. We did all of that with logical thinking. If you're good at math, you're going to have a logical foundation that gives you a leg up. But that's also true of a lot of other backgrounds that rarely, if ever, utilize mathematics. Here's a few examples of backgrounds that also gain that advantage. If you've never done any of these or you've struggled with them, don't worry. Logical thinking is a learned soft skill. Working with code can help you get that. But the relationship also goes the other way. If you get good at programming, you'll now have a logical foundation. And if you are interested in math, you can start to learn math easier. Sorry for the tangent. All right, what else did we learn? Well, we were introduced to flow control. That's what those keywords were, the while, the if. Those conditions only ran under certain circumstances. And flow is very important to computing. It's very important to a lot of jobs. It's why logic is so helpful. It's important in a lot of life, to be honest with you. Many, many jobs. It's like a storyboard for the job or for the task. And when we're good at it, it does provide an outline of our work. So logically, if it provides an outline of our work, it's probable that if we think about it before we code, we'll probably be better at coding. So we might actually want to think about that later. We actually did a little bit of that process earlier. What's next? From the metagame perspective, we definitely saw a lot. Augmentations are definitely a thing, but we haven't been introduced to them, although we probably will soon. RAM is fast becoming an issue. It was already an issue, but now we're going to have to deal with it probably before any other mechanic. We have a few opportunities to improve our RAM. We've already improved our computer, but we know that it can go way further and it's going to get very expensive very quickly. We were also told that we could purchase servers. And we do know that some of the other servers, we can run scripts on them, the ones that we're hacking. I feel like the growth speed is going to be based significantly on money, and HackNet gives us a little bit of money, but our basic hacking script beat that a ton. Our new hacking scripts are likely going to beat that even more, and we have so much more of them. The RAM is going to get us more hacking, is going to get us more money. Really, we just have to utilize the RAM that's available to us now because we can't afford the next step in RAM as it stands. Next episode, I think what we have to do is we have to build a network and use those RAMs. So that's what we're going to do is we're going to build a network and use those computers' RAM in addition to what it is that we've got. Well, that's going to do it for today. Hopefully I didn't scare anybody off. See you next time.